morning, everybody. We're going to start this webinar. Welcome, everybody. My name is Deyanira Murga. I am the co-chair for the WCAP's Latin American Caribbean Working Group. We are ending the celebrations for this Hispanic Heritage Month, and we wanted to honor it by bringing a great panel conversation about the impact of the Latina in national security. WCAP's Women in Color for Advanced Peace and Security is a 501c3, a nonprofit organization, and its vision is to advance the leadership and professional development of women of color in the fields of international peace, security, and conflict transformation. Our Latin American and Caribbean Working Group mission is to facilitate, recognize, and promote discussions, research, education, and mentoring to enhance women leadership capacity in Latin America. Please visit our website, wcaps.org, and be part of our members. At WCAPS, we believe your voice is a critical addition to these topics, and thank you for participating with us this morning virtually. We are going to ask you to please send your questions and comments via Q&A box, and our moderator will bring those to our panel guest. So today, I would like to introduce our moderator, Gila Matus. She's a co-chair for the WCAP's Defense and Intelligence Working Group. Thank you, Gila, for taking this challenge. Gila is going to discuss with our guest the impact that Latina culture has in national security field. Our guest speaker stories probably are similar to yours, but everyone has a different experience. So we're going to listen and learn how they manage their careers in this specific field with this interesting profile and culture that we come from. This is the time to recognize our roots are so important and have been guiding us and helping us and make us stronger as women during this professional journey in security. Hope you enjoy this session. Let's start. All yours, Gila.
Thank you so much for your insightful opening remarks. Good morning and buenos dias to everyone. It's such a pleasure to collaborate with the Latin America and Caribbean Working Group as the newest co-chair for the Defense and Intelligence Working Group. My name is Gila and I have been with WCAPS for a year now. And I also work within the U.S. Agency for International Development. And I must express how grateful I am to be associated with a community of women who are so empowered. With that, I want to thank everyone for coming and taking part in the Latina Impact in National Security conversation. It's vital to recognize Hispanic Heritage Month by celebrating diversity, also women that are inspiring younger generations so that they too can have a seat at the table for a significant common good. The Latinx community, notably our Latina panelists today who work in the security sectors as protectors of Americans' lives and safety. So we are here today to hear their stories. So please welcome our panelists. I will start with Liliana Bisosa. She is a operations coordinator at the William J. Perry Center for Hemispheric Defense Studies. With over 6 years of experience in the public sector, Liliana is a Latin America regional expert specializing in transnational operations and logistics. And in that capacity, Liliana has led over 50 different international workshops, seminars, and webinars on illicit financing, Chinese influence in Latin America, and cybersecurity. So prior to joining the Perry Center, Liliana has served as a Bureau for Consular Affairs Assistant at the Embassy in Madrid. Her research and analysis have appeared in publications. Sorry, my mic is just freezing up a bit. So prior to joining the Perry Center, Liliana served as a Bureau of Consular Affairs Assistant at the U.S. Embassy in Madrid. Her research and analysis have appeared in publications by Data and the Perry Center. So as a young Latina from Ponce, Puerto Rico, Liliana advocates for greater Latino inclusivity in the federal government, where Latinas remain underrepresented in the civilian and military sectors. So thank you for joining us, Liliana. Next, we have Lourdes Barriga Abarca. She is the colonial of the Peruvian Army and a member of the first promotion of women affairs. She is also the instructor of the military school and the School of Engineering, which is also the Peruvian scientific station in Machu Picchu. So she's the military observer in the Democratic Republic of the Congo in Africa. She's the first woman who has entered the Superior War School of the Army, the director of the Army Scientific and Technological Institute, teacher at the Higher School of War of the Army. She is the currently Deputy Director of Human Relations of the Army Personnel Directorate. She's also the Geological Engineer and Social Communicator, MG in Administration and Military Sciences. And she has her doctorate in education and postdoctorate in scientific research and defense. So welcome, Lourdes, it's a pleasure. Next is Major Tahina Montoya. She is a multilingual international affairs strategist of women, peace, and security expert with 12 years of active duty as an Air Force intelligence officer, working at the tactical, operational, and strategic levels, both nationally and overseas. Tahina is currently a major in the United States Air Force Reserves, where she serves as a strategic analyst for the Americas Trans-Regional Threat Center. In her civilian capacity, Tahina serves as presidential appointee for the Biden administration, where she works at the Pentagon as special assistant to the Assistant Secretary of the Air Force for Manpower and Reserve Affairs. She's also a doctorate candidate at Georgetown University with a graduate of the WIPS Graduate Certificate Program. Welcome, Major. And lastly, Fabiana Sofia Pereira is an associate professor at the William J. Perry Center for Hemispheric Defense Studies. Prior to joining the Perry Center, Fabiana was a Rosenthal Fellow at the Office of the Secretary of Defense. Undersecretary for Policy, Western Hemispheric Affairs. Fabiana also has experience working in the public and private sectors. She worked as a research associate at Mitsubishi International Corporation, focusing on Latin America and the energy and infrastructure sectors. She also has experience serving as the Department of Veterans Affairs and the U.S. Agency for International Development. Fabiana holds a master's in Latin America Studies from Georgetown University, and she earned her PhD in political science from the George Washington University as well. So we are honored to have you here with us. You are all poderosas in your own way. In other words, you are all powerful women challenging the status quo. So given your extensive background, we can only imagine how hectic your schedules are. So with all of your work and leadership roles, thank you again for being here with us today. So now we can get started with our first question. And there's no specific order, so please feel free to just raise your hand and I'll call on you. So with our first question, what does Latinidad mean to you? And how do you think your work contributes to that? Do you think your cultural background has made a positive impact? Liliana, please.
So 10, 20 years ago, I would have never imagined that I, as a Puerto Rican girl who kind of endlessly got picked on for the color of my skin, would have overcome adversity. And it has made me a lot stronger. It's made me into who I am today. And something that I've realized that Latinidad means to me is that we are resilient. we, as Latino women, we have been put through so many different events, different obstacles, and we've always overcome them. And that is something that I know all of us will continue to do as we move forward in our careers. Also personally, it doesn't just have to be professionally, it also has to be personally, where you can prove to others that you are capable and you're able to make your mark in this world. And so just keep pushing forward.
Thank you for that. And I like that you mentioned being resilient, not just in our professional careers, but in our personal lives as well, too. You know, it's good to have that balance in between the two. Major, Lourdes, Dr. Fabiana Sofia, please feel free to chime in.
I cannot.
I was thinking as, oh, God. Well, first, buenas tardes, good afternoon. I was thinking as Liliana was talking, that it also, Latinidad, not, I guess, more outwardly, like what it means to others. And I think a lot of folks assume a lot about what being a Latino means, and they're very quick, even though we're a very diverse group of people, they're very quick to lump us into certain stereotypes, which forces us, to Liliana's point, be extra resilient. And so the idea that being a Latina also comes with a certain level of responsibility to kind of have conversations so that others who don't understand what it means to be a Latina, or who are assuming that we're all one and the same, to be able to have those conversations and be open to those conversations so that others understand that being a Latina, yes, it's a category, but it's a very, very broad category, which I do think is part of what makes us so unique and so much of an asset to whatever workforce we choose to belong to. And in this case, it would be national security.
Building on what Taina was saying, I think one of the things that is hard about Latinidad is that it's not, in the US context, it hasn't been described as specifically a race. So it's, you can be Latina and white. You can be Latina and African. I guess you'd be like Afro-Caribbean in a sense. So without necessarily your parents being different things, like your parents both identifying as Latinos, you yourself can be something else. And I think because it's hard to put boundaries around what Latino is, it makes it hard for us sometimes to work together and to see the commonalities. So I think, though I believe the bonds of Latinidad are strong and that there's a big part of shared culture, there's also big differences. It's really different to be Peruvian versus Haitian. Like, and I think sometimes to our detriment, we focus on the differences between what it means to be, like, for example, Puerto Rican, where you're already American, versus being a recent immigrant. And I think we do that to our detriment. And that perhaps we'd be stronger as a community if we focus more on the commonalities and the common traits of our culture that are similar, whether you're Argentinian or Peruvian or Dominican or whatever.
Hi, everybody. I think my English is not good. I prefer to talk to you in Spanish, better for me. Y lo que sí quiero decirles es que primero me siento orgullosa de ser latina, como todas estas valiosas latinas que están aquí con nosotras, y agradecerles porque es un honor estar aquí y compartir con, creo, muchas más personas lo que sentimos. Ser latino es un sentimiento, es una combinación hermosa de costumbres, sangres, tradiciones, historia, que nos hace, creo, únicos. Y al parecer muchas veces piensan que por ser latino no podemos avanzar o no podemos llegar. Creo que nosotras somos la muestra de que sí se pueden hacer las cosas y se hacen bien. Entonces, queremos impulsar a todas y a todos a que crean en los latinos. Somos una fuerza, somos una imagen, pero somos un sentimiento. Orgullosos de ser latinos.
Gracias. Sorry, I lost connection for a second, but just to translate what Colonial Lourdes was saying is that people, you tend to think that Latinos can't always advance, which it's not true. We are a force and we are proud of our heritage and where we come from and of our roots. Like, we are proud to be Latinos, and we're not just representing ourselves, but our family and our community and where we come from. So thank you all for the first set of your answers. So for our second question, wanted to ask, how can we foster allyship among our community and other movements in order to bridge the gap between our culture and our work?
I guess I think the first thing I think of is, and I think this is applicable to not just Latinos, but different underrepresented demographics, is that we can often compete with each other. I think Dr. Fabiana mentioned this a little bit earlier, but we can often compete with each other, and that is nothing more than just a detriment to ourselves. And so the importance of being in a space where if you are with other Latinos, which is very few, and a lot of times we're the only ones in the room, but then instead of viewing, if there's another Latino in the room or Latina in the room, instead of viewing them as competition or sizing them up, using that to kind of work together to help make sure that more Latinos can join the room as well. Because clearly, as we've all experienced, both not only the panelists, but any of the audience members, there is plenty of challenges and hurdles and barriers that are thrown at us. And the last thing we need is to be competing with each other or against each other, because that does nothing for ourselves as individuals, and it does nothing for Latinos as a group. And so I think what we can do is we can work on building each other up, and instead of viewing each other for the strengths and weaknesses, or this person is better at that, and because of that they're going to be more successful, just working together to empower each other and to bring each other up.
And I would also like to add that in national security specifically, and I know very many other fields, they're such white male dominated fields. So mentorship is extremely important. So not only do we not need to tear people down, but as Latinos, we need to mentor not just Latino women, but also Latino men, because if they don't see an example set for them about how far they can go in their career, or what is in the realm of possibility, which is anything is in the realm of possibility, they're not able to feel comfortable. And I know when I first started, I did not feel comfortable in the federal government, but as the years have continued to go on, I have seen more representation. And if you still look at it, I think Latina women make up less than 3% of the national security workforce. So we have a lot of work to continue doing. And I am excited to see where this goes. I do believe that we're going to need a lot of patience. These results are not going to be immediate, and it's very important to remember that. And I always try to remind myself that as much as we want to make the change, it won't be a change that'll be completed by tomorrow. It will take some time, but I am so excited to put in the work and mentor other women in the field, other Latino women, so that they can continue to move forward.
I just wanted to briefly add and build on what Liliana said about mentorship, that a lot of times when you hear the word mentor, you often think that as an individual, you have to find a mentor that is either older than you or a higher rank than you or in a higher position. But mentorship, as Major General retired Urrutia Varjal mentioned last week during the Only Latina in the Room panel, mentorship goes a lot of different ways, right? So you can find a mentor to help mentor you. You can mentor with colleagues and with coworkers and friends. And then obviously the mentorship where you become the mentor and you're mentoring others up. And so mentorship is very dynamic. And regardless of how you approach mentorship, the important part is participating in mentorship, so that way we can all lift each other and work towards improving 11% that Liliana mentioned.
Yes, absolutely. And having a mentor or being a mentee, that also means like building this relationship based on trust and vulnerability. And that's something that's very important too, because your mentor or being a mentee, it's not just about professional development, but it's also very helpful in our own personal lives, because representation matters, right? Being able to see what everyone else is accomplishing as well, like that gives you this idea, like, okay, if they can do it too, so can I, and that also alleviates this this visual where you think, we have to compete to get to the top. And that's not the case at all whatsoever. Whether at work or in our personal lives, like we can together, work together, build each other up, be empowered, and also raise the standards of the fact that, if I can get up to this position, so can you and everyone else as well too. Like we can bring others up with us as well.
Y yo creo que también, perdón Fabi, yo creo que también podemos, esas alianzas que estamos mencionando y también ver cómo nosotras podemos organizarnos. Por ejemplo, les cuento que acá en Perú, nosotros somos un comité que ve el tema de mujer, pero adicionalmente a esto nos hemos extendido y nos hemos extendido a las diversas regiones que tiene el país y con las divisiones militares. Entonces ahí hacemos alianzas con todas ellas para conocer cómo estamos, cómo vamos avanzando, y hacemos lo que mencionaron, ¿no? El liderazgo, mentoras, y gente que pueda también motivar e impulsar a los demás. Pero yo quisiera destacar que en este caso, esta acción que estamos haciendo ahora, lo que en estos momentos compartimos, es una alianza. Eso es lo que buscamos. Y todos estos granitos de arena que le llamo yo, contribuyen porque permitimos conocer experiencias, motivarnos mutuamente y motivar a otras a hacer lo que más adelante podíamos decir que no podíamos o que dudábamos hacer. Entonces, esta es una gran oportunidad de aliarnos, de tener compañeras y tener mentoras, tener amigas, tener asesoras, como en un momento tuvimos nosotros acá en Perú a muchas de ustedes que estuvieron acá y nos dieron lecciones de que no podemos detenernos y que tenemos que seguir avanzando.
Gracias. Just to translate, what she's saying is that in Peru, there's a lot of women as well that are extending this invitation to be mentees, to be mentors, to create friendship and this region of alliance as well. And what we're doing here today with this panel discussion, this is also us taking action and being allies as well. We're here today, we're listening to each other, we are motivating each other, and that's something that should also be appreciated as well. Dr. Fabiana, please.
Fabiana is fine.
Fabiana.
On the issue of mentorship, I also wanted to say that as this panel highlights, as so many events around Hispanic Heritage Month have touched on, there aren't that many women, Latinas in national security, and there certainly aren't any at the highest level. Like, I get paid the medium bucks, as I used to say when I worked at another university. Like, there has never been a Latina Secretary of Defense. Like, there's not a lot of people higher up. So not only thinking about mentorship in that horizontal way that people are thinking about, but also thinking that there are so few, your mentor might just look different from you. Consider Lourdes. Lourdes viene siendo la primera mujer coronel en Perú, ¿verdad? si ella busca una mentora que se parezca a ella, no hay más nadie, porque ella es la que está rompiendo barreras para llegar allá. Los mentores de Lourdes naturalmente tienen que ser otra cosa, no van a ser latinos. Y creo que a veces darle oportunidad a la gente, consider people outside of our group that might be good mentors. Not everybody, not every person you meet is going to be a good mentor. Not everybody fancier than you is going to be a good mentor, but consider that there are such few Latinas that perhaps initially the person to look up to is going to not be just like you.
That's absolutely true. I mean, if you look at our mentorship program here at WCAPS, we all come from different backgrounds. Yes, we are women of color, and that's how we are here today. But we're not all the same. We don't all have the same education level. We don't all study the same thing. And that's a strength. That's what actually brings us to this conversation here today. Like, we each have something unique that we can bring and learn from each other. And that's the beautiful thing of allyship. You know, how else can we learn from each other if we were all with the same type of background? So there's a lot of learning and unlearning. And Fabiana, like you said, it's not just this horizontal like mentorship program. Like, sometimes you do have to step outside of the box and think of other creative outlets. Like, how else can I, you know, reach a certain position? Who can I network? Who can I reach out to? What other types of skills can I learn? How else can I improve? And these are all just the different types of questions that we have to answer within ourselves, because sometimes we don't have that top person that we can look up to. You know, there's going to be times where we have to be that person that other people can look up to. So it's kind of like, how else can we achieve this? How can we inspire and motivate others at the same time doing it for ourselves? So thank you guys for your remarks. And for our third question today, this is a little bit more personal. So in your opinion, how can someone be inclusive beyond performative allyship? And what have your personal experiences been with being an ally and including yourself? So do you have any advice on how to bring, any advice on how to build a strong network of team?
I think part of that, I don't know if this is going to answer your question, so feel free to tell me it's not, but I think part of what I try to do beyond allyship is what we've spoken about before. And so I would, with 100% would not be where I am today as a major in the Air Force had it not been for my junior ROTC unit, so Junior Reserve Officer Training Corps unit in my high school. And my parents, much like many of our parents, I'm sure, who immigrated from Colombia, they always told me, Taina, you have to give back. Even if it doesn't have to be big. It can be very little and very insignificant, but you have to give back, especially to the organizations and the people that helped you advance and move forward and achieve your goals. And so one of the things that I did when I commissioned as a second lieutenant, and by the way, second lieutenants do not make a lot of money, but I started a scholarship at my local high school, and it was very little, right? It was only a $250 scholarship. And sometimes that went so that only one cadet could do a trip to Washington, D.C. Sometimes that was to help them buy 2 textbooks when they went on to college. And slowly throughout the years, that changed. At its peak, I was able to get other alumni. I was able to encourage other alumni from not only Latinos, mostly Latinos, but from all demographics to give their own scholarships. And then because the headmaster had heard from that, he matched the scholarships. So at its peak, it was 26 students got scholarships to either travel to Washington, D.C., be able to compete in drill team competitions so that the unit could buy more uniforms to offset the cost of college. And it's those little small changes that make such a big difference. And
think we lost her for a second. But based on what she was just saying, we do have like this responsibility to give back. You know, just seeing how much we've gained and like the sacrifices that we had to take. There are times where we feel like, okay, well, you know, I had help, I had a support system, so let me extend that. How else can I help others as well? And as Major Tahina was saying, when you take such small steps, it may seem insignificant at the time, but you have no idea how much of an impact that can make and how inspiring that could be to others as well. Making one small change here and there and just seeing the reactions of others, they'll tend to match that type of energy as well. So that's really great hearing. Anyone else want to chime in?
One thing I think that's also important to note is Tahina mentioned kind of monetary help and how she started off with a small scholarship and now it's grown. But what really helped me when I was younger is having someone who has helped instill confidence in me. And that is not monetary. It's so incredible what you can do with a little bit of confidence. I grew up, went to middle school and high school in an area where there was absolutely zero diversity. So growing up, people would always tell me and my parents that I would probably join a gang or I would not amount to anything in life. And that was seen as normal for me. And I did not realize, or not that I didn't realize, but I think I was humiliated. I was ashamed of my culture because it wasn't being respected. It wasn't being welcomed in my community. And so as I've grown up, specifically from undergrad, moving on to my master's career, now even my professional career, I've had several individuals who have helped build up my confidence. And now I feel great. You know, I'm not ashamed to be who I am. I'm so excited to be a Latina woman. I love reggaeton music. I love my culture. I love my food. I love my language. And that's crucial.
Yes. Yes, that's very important. I mean, I can also resonate with you as well. When I was in high school, I used to straighten my hair. So for context, I'm Dominican. If you guys are not aware of this, in Dominican Republic, we don't really wear our natural curls. There's a movement now, you know, embracing our rizos. And we have this saying, like trending right now, it's a hashtag, but it's kind of like pelo malo wear, like bad hair wear. So we're just like challenging this idea of what is the good hair, bad hair, if curly hair is professional or not. So growing up, the town I lived in wasn't diverse. So I felt like to fit in, I had to straighten my hair. But as I've gotten older, I felt more confident in myself, where I come from, and being around others as well, where they were confident in themselves, that type of energy rubbed off on me. So small things like just embracing my natural hair and challenging that status quo where people would tend to put you in a box just based on how you look like, based on your skin color and your background, and just seeing that you're able to challenge that and say, no, wait a minute, I'm capable of a lot more. I can accomplish this. Like, this is what I can do. So Liliana, I am so glad you shared that. So thank you. And here you are today, you know? And Tahina, welcome back.
I'm not sure what happened there. My phone overheated, so I apologize. But what I was just finishing off, but Gila, I heard what you were saying, and I something that has helped me get through like tough moments is when I see someone either assuming something about me because I'm a Latina or underestimating me because I am a Latina. I use that as a challenge to motivate myself, which is something I know we're all good at. I know that being resilient is part of our DNA. And I thrive on proving people wrong. And it's an inside joke within my family. Like, they know, don't tell Taina that she can't do something because se va a matar haciéndolo. Like, I will fight and I will work hard, but I'm going to prove someone wrong. And so instead of, you know, whatever pushback, setback, or, you know, if someone's saying a negative thing about you or underestimating you, using that to motivate you instead of bringing you down. Like, use it as a challenge.
Absolutely, absolutely. It is. I mean, even if we're scared, if we're nervous, even if our voice is shaking, you know, like we have to challenge that. Because what other options do we have? What else are we going to do? Are we just going to sit back and take it? Absolutely not. Does anyone else have anything else to share? Do they want to add to the conversation?
Yo creo que todas hemos pasado momentos difíciles y diferentes, seamos militares o no. Yo las admiro mucho porque el hecho de estar acá ya implica que cada una de ustedes ha roto esa burbuja de cristal en las cuales hay veces nos incorporan, ¿no? Pero nosotras tenemos que tomar decisiones. Y si nosotras no confiamos en nosotros mismas como latinas, como mujeres, como lo que ya somos y nos hemos formado, no vamos a poder avanzar. Entonces, en este contexto en el que todas decimos que es importante lo que hacemos y lo que vamos a hacer, hay muchas latinas siguiendo lo que hacemos. Hay muchos latinos que dicen, oye, qué bien, es mujer y va adelante, sin importar si seamos o no de un grupo militar o civil. Lo importante es que esas decisiones las tomemos confiando en lo que nosotros vamos a hacer y seguir para adelante, ¿no?
Absolutamente. What she's saying is that we have all been in different situations, but yet here we are, we're all challenging what that type of stereotype, like the judgments and assumptions people have made on us. You know, so as women, it's up to us to trust ourselves and to believe in each other and ourselves as well, because as women, we are capable of achieving a lot more. And that's something that a lot of people are understanding. You know, they're able to say like, oh, wow, look at her, she's a female and she is in the military. So that also comes with the sort of responsibility as well. But once we tend to believe in ourselves and like we trust in our abilities, we know that we can lograr, like we know that we can advance and achieve more.
I did want to add one thing, and it's just, obviously we're talking about ways to think positive and move forward and push through, but I do want to highlight the importance of talking about mental health that comes with all of this stress and pressure that we often face to push forward and to overcome the barriers or overcome the challenges, and the importance of having a very, even if it's just one person that you can fall back on. For me, that's my husband. And you know, at work, you're gonna see, you know, whether it's Major Montoya or Mrs. Montoya, depending on where I'm working on a given week, you will never see me cry, because as Latinas, there is a stereotype that we are too emotional. I'm not saying it's not okay to cry. It is absolutely okay to cry. I myself have made it a goal, especially in the national security space where it's very dry and very rigid and very strict, to try not to see other folks, especially those who are very quick to assume my capabilities or my weaknesses. I will not let them see the cry. Let them see me cry, but you better believe in my car, my car is my safe space. I call my husband, I vent, I cry, me desahogo, and then I put it back together and I'm like, okay. So I just want to, you know, encourage folks to, yes, push through, but the importance of mental health and being, you know, having a safe space or talking to someone when times do get tough, because obviously there are moments that do get very, very difficult. And while we put on a strong front, and unfortunately we are still in a place where we have to do that in order to not tap into the stereotypes, right? If you cry or you get too upset or you get too loud, it's es Latina, son muy emocionadas, right? That's the assumption, right? And so there's a certain level of control that especially in uniform that I've had to resume. But I definitely have my safe space where I kind of let it all out and vent to make sure that mentally and emotionally I'm in a good space.
Absolutely. I mean, we can't also suppress our emotions. You know, that takes a toll on us and our health. And our physical health is tied to our mental health as well. So we have to rest. Of course, we have to be resilient, but we have to prioritize resting. We need to, even if it's just with social media, logging off. If our calendars are just booked with meetings back to back, it takes a toll on us. So we have to be able to log off and be able to take a deep breath in, handle our emotions, because we don't want to be reactive either. Because as being Latinas and being women of color, people are going to assume like, oh, here she comes, she's going to start crying, or she's going to give an attitude, or she might push back. And it's kind of like, no, wait a minute, like I can compose myself. Give me a second. Let me just like gather my thoughts. And then, you know, and if we have to go and vent to someone, if we have to cry, go to the bathroom and just scream, let it all out, absolutely. But then to be able to walk back into the room, sit at the table and say, okay, now we can move forward. Yeah, so thank you for sharing that, because mental health is absolutely important. Fabiana?
I also wanted to add that it can be frustrating, but work is work. You really shouldn't be crying about work. Like, we're Latinas. We know what's really important. Like, what's really important is my mom is super proud of me. She doesn't care that you like looked at me because I got here at 8:15 and not at 8:00. Like, that's bad on you and your petty standards. What really, really matters is beyond here. So like, definitely cry if you have to, but keep that bigger perspective that work is work. And if any one culture has a good perspective on what really matters, is Latino culture. So remember that too.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's good to have this healthy like work-life balance as well too. So if I know with me, I work from home. So I'm not expected to be like online at 9 o'clock exactly on the dot. I like to, because that's just me. But with my work culture, they're now like, oh my God, it's 9:05, blah, blah, blah. And if they are like that, I mean, that's on you. So absolutely. And I'm sure all of our parents are proud of us from what we have accomplished as well. So I'm sure after this call, I'm going to call my mom like, oh, mommy, guess what?
Y es que los latinos somos sentimiento, ¿verdad? Sentimiento, entrega, pero también fortaleza.
Absolutely. We are sentimental, yes, but we are also resilient at the same time. We can be both. That's the wonderful thing about being this like multifaceted women. Yes, we can cry, but we can also be assertive. We can be emotional, yes, but that doesn't mean that we're weak. You know, it doesn't equate to the same thing. And for our fourth question for today, when you first began your career, how did you envision your future? And is that something you're upholding now? So for example, when you first started, did you think you would be where you are today? And did you see yourself in this pathway of empowerment, you know, where you are paving this pathway and opening doors of opportunity for others?
I think it's very kind of you of saying like that we're paving a pathway. I don't envision it like that, but I'm very honored to be included amongst this. But my mom saved a paper when I was in kindergarten, and I had written that I wanted to be an FBI agent. And obviously I'm not an FBI agent, but I think it was because at the time, like I'm in the national security space, but I think at the time I didn't even know that I could serve in the military or what that would look like or how that would come to play. And so considering that I didn't know about the opportunities of joining the military, I think I came pretty damn close to becoming an FBI agent. But what I've you know, it's just recently with my most recent job, I walked in and someone asked me off the bat, they said, so where do you want to go next? And I was very confused by the question because it was on my first day. And while I definitely think it's important to have aspirational goals, I also think it's very important to grow where you're planted and grow where you are in the moment. And so for me, I was taken aback because it's also very important to kind of immerse yourself in the position that you are right now, whether that's a student or whether that's, you know, a brand new second lieutenant in the military, or if it's in my case, like my first time as a political appointee for the Biden administration. I want to completely immerse myself and learn my job and be really good at my job, and then maybe work towards, you know, where I want to be in the future. And I feel like when I was 6 years old, I had no idea what joining the military was, and I didn't. So I guess what I'm trying to communicate is, in multiple phases of my career, I've always been like, I'm not sure where I want to go. I think this is where I want to go next. But right now I want to focus on making sure that I'm the best at where I'm at, and or that I'm doing the best to learn as much as possible where I'm at the moment. But I always do have aspirational, like, you know, one day it'd be great to be a political appointee. I never actually said that, but I was like, one day I want to work at the Pentagon. And so so whatever that's worth. I don't know if that makes any sense.
No, it makes perfect sense. You know, like, it's good to have these aspirational goals and something to plan for the future, maybe even having a 5-year plan. But it's also important for you to enjoy where you are present day. And as you mentioned before, when it comes to mental health, that tends to give us some type of like anxiety too, where we're always thinking like, what's next? What do I have to work on? What else can I take on? And it's kind of like, you know, we can take the time to slow down, and we can absolutely enjoy where we are present day and just be happy with that. It doesn't mean that we don't think that we are capable of more. Absolutely we are, but life is also short. We can't stress ourselves out by taking on too much. We have to enjoy where we are and just learning as we go.
And I'd like to add to that, never in a million years, for me, did I think I'd be where I'm at today. Tahina, I know you said when you were little, your mom had found a letter of you wanting to join the FBI. I, up until college, was very dead set on choosing a completely different career path. I wanted to do medicine. And actually the only program I had applied to that was not a pre-med program or like a chemical engineering program was the undergraduate degree program that I did with William & Mary and the University of St. Andrews. And there was just something telling me, take this opportunity and go study abroad and do this program. You're going to love it. And I'm very happy that I had very supportive parents, and I did that. And I kind of fell into my career by chance. It was just something that I figured, like, why not give it a shot? If I hate it, I can always go back to doing what I wanted to do in the first place. But I can't lie, I started working and I fell into the traditional point of view, I would say. My idea when I first started working was like, I'm only going to be here for a couple of years, and then, you know, I'm going to transition out of the workforce, because I had been raised with these traditional views in my family of like raising a family, being at home with your child and kind of taking care of all the housemaker duties. And I'm so happy that my viewpoints have changed, and now I see nothing but a career, and I would love a career that's flexible. So those opportunities do arise, I am able to spend time with my family, but also be, you know, a female in defense. And there were so few women when I first started my career path, and now the number has grown. It hasn't grown exponentially, but it has grown slightly. That it makes me proud. It makes me want to continue moving forward. I want to be somebody. It doesn't have to be in the federal government. It can be maybe even in the private sector, but I would like to show people that you can balance all these things. Latina women are multifaceted. We're capable of having 25 different things on our plates and being successful at each and every one of them. And so that's how my viewpoints have changed, from being a little bit more traditional to continuing my career and wanting to move forward and move higher up in the hierarchy of the federal government.
Absolutely. And it's good to embrace that change. You never know what an opportunity may lead you to. Like I started college as an accountant major. I thought I was going to be an accountant. I mean, something completely different. Here I am working for the federal government. I would have never expected that, but it happens. Sometimes, you know, you take a class in college, or you're just listening in to a panel discussion and you hear what everyone else is saying, and you're like, oh, wow, that opportunity exists. I could do that, you know, and it just instills this piece of like curiosity in you, and you have to follow that at times. So that's great.
Building on what Hila was saying, I think a big part of it is that you can't be what you don't see. So if you didn't grow up, like maybe Taina did see FBI, I'm not going to ask under what circumstances, but maybe she did see FBI agents growing up, pero no Air Force off. I mean, it's hard to see Latina Air Force officers just walking around unless you happen to already live in a military installation or close by. So I think when you ask people what they want to be, is the thing they see, like either on TV, like with all this trend of kids saying they want to be an influencer, big eye roll, or like the professions that, you know, like fireman, like nobody grows up being like, I want to be a consultant for Booz Allen. But then you grow up and you see like, what are the real jobs that people have? What is available? Where could somebody that looks like you, talks like you, has your background, has your priorities, where could you fit in? And I think as there are more and more of us, it's just only going to make us more visible. Like now I have Taina to point to as an example to say like, this is what it would look like if you stay. And I did this because right now I have a mentee who's in the Air National Guard. So it's like, this is what it could look like. You could be like her and you get to meet her and talk to her in a 3-dimensional way and decide, do you want to be Taina? Or you can be, I actually know somebody who's in the reserves and the US Marshals. You could be this, but like, as there's more of us, I think there's more visible examples of what it can be. Before that, it's just the jobs that Barbie had or whatever, whoever, you know, like your neighbor. I went on a long thing.
Which, by the way, I am excited to see the Barbie movie, though. Just putting that out there. But it's really great to network because you don't know what this person that you just met, who they know, and what door that could lead to as well, and what conversations you can have.
And what jobs exist. Like, again, no little kids like, I want to be an acquisition specialist, mommy. Like that doesn't happen, but that's a real job. And as you grow up and you meet more people, hopefully you meet somebody that is like a little bit outside and that'll bring more people to defense. Or they do a really cool movie and then that, it could go either way.
Sí, realmente cuando somos pequeñitos no sabemos realmente qué vamos a hacer, ni nos imaginábamos, como dice la pregunta, que nos veíamos aquí, ¿no? Yo ahora tengo el 11% de todo el ejército que son mujeres, ¿no? Tengo que impulsarlas y que sigan adelante. Y antes pues no había mujeres en las Fuerzas Armadas, ¿no? Ahora vemos Taína en la Fuerza Aérea, vemos, bueno, Liliana liderando, Fabiana, una excelente docente. Ya estamos en todos los campos, entonces denos esa oportunidad. Y cuando ustedes comentan y dicen sobre lo que hacemos, sí, estamos abriendo camino, que es difícil también, y estamos abriendo la puerta a todas esas chicas que, bueno, ya no decidirán ser pues una muñeca, ¿no? Si no quieren de ser como ella, como la que está llegando. Yo empecé, les cuento, aquí cuentan 6 barritas, con 2, después 3, 5. Entonces, la idea es que si yo llegué aquí, ¿no? También tú puedes hacerlo, ¿no? Si la doctora Fabiana está allí, yo también quiero ser como ella, quiero ser como Liliana, quiero ser como Taína, ¿no? Ahora ya tenemos mujeres pilotos, mujeres que justo hace rato pasaba un helicóptero y yo me preguntaba, bueno, ¿quién será el piloto? ¿Será hombre, mujeres, no? Un latino está ahí, pero tenemos presencia. y el papel importante que juega la familia. La familia. Cuando yo decidí formar parte de esto y ustedes tomaron la decisión, yo les aseguro que su padre y su madre le dijeron, hazlo, porque esa es una familia latina que impulsa a sus hijos, cuida a sus hijos, y como lo hacen todos los latinos, trabajan duro para ser lo que hoy son. Y el apoyo ahora no de la familia que teníamos, no ahora de la familia que formamos, el esposo y los hijos, ¿no? Qué bonito en todo ese complejo que haya una familia latina sensacional.
Y hablando de Latina, familia, perdón, hablando de familia, yo sé que Lourdes acaba de mencionar, and Liliana also touched on it. I do want to say, when there's a will, there's a way, and that slogan can be applied to a lot of things. I'm married to my husband's active duty Navy. He's also a Latino, Colombiano y Costarricense, and we have two beautiful brown babies, and we're balancing it, you know, and so. Did I think it was possible, and was it difficult at times? 100%, but it can, you know, it can definitely happen. And I guess I don't mean to be a downer, because I feel like this is all positive things, but one of the things that we have to, that I think is maybe not the best aspect of our culture, is that we're told to respect our elders, or to not ask questions, or to just, you know, like specifically the not ask questions piece. I encourage you to, what Liliana did, to break through that and to change your perspective. And I encourage you and almost challenge you to ask questions. Ask questions about, you know, if you don't see what you want to be, ask questions. Ask someone, reach out. We have great resources like LinkedIn, where folks who are in those spaces, if you hear about a program and you don't think you qualify, ask. If, you know, don't shut the door on yourself. There's going to be plenty of doors, plenty of folks that are going to close the door on us. Let them close the door on us, but let's not be the ones to close the door on ourselves.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tahina and Lourdes. You both made very valid points. As Lourdes was saying, you know, as we talk about what we do and what we have accomplished in our background, we're also telling other people that this is something that they can do as well, you know. And now, because women have been so involved and we are breaking these stereotypes and challenging the status quo, we're breaking glass ceilings, we're doing things that haven't been done 10 years ago. Now we have female pilots. So when you see a plane, like you can now say like, oh, is this a male or a female? Like, oh, I wonder, like, is that my cousin? Because you now, like, we just don't know, because the national security sector is becoming so diverse now. Slowly, yes, but it's getting there, And Tahina, I think it's also good to talk about the negatives, because we have to be realistic. I mean, it's not perfect to balance everything out. You know, we also have to be realistic with other people and say, yes, this is what you can do, but just be mindful of these types of challenges, you know. And it's good to share that, because we can tell someone, this is what you can achieve, and this is also how you can mitigate some of these risks. You know, you can learn from my mistakes, or you can learn from my successes as well, because life is just, it's not perfect. There are going to be challenges. There are going to be doors that are going to close right on our faces. But how are we going to open that next door? You know, how else can we get our foot in the door? Is it going to be us that opens that door and creates it? Or is there someone that we can find on LinkedIn and message them and be like, hey, like, your page, your experiences, it looks so great. Like, can we virtually meet and chat over coffee, or have a happy hour or something like that? You know, being able to reach out and ask those questions. We have to ask questions. We have to be curious. So thank you for sharing that and highlighting that as well. And yes, you're absolutely right. When there's a will, there is a way. We have to find that way. It may take time, but we will find it. Fabiana, I see your comment in the chat. I also want to be like, know this as well. I want to be like all of you guys, actually. So now I just want to introduce you guys to Sandy, who's also our co-chair for the Latin America and Caribbean Working Group. Hi, Sandy.
Hi, Gila. Hi, everyone. Buenos días a todas y a todos, por si nos están siguiendo los compañeros hombres también. En esta conversación, I'm just listening to everything that you all are saying, and you all are so inspiring. I love it. I love the conversation. Thank you, Gila, for guiding us through this, wonderful conversation with such impressive careers. But I think beyond your careers, I'm just impressed by your personal strength and will, right? Because that's something that, is unique to you all and unique to us, as Latinas. So I applaud you and I thank you for being here. I'll say a couple of words after once we're ending. We're right now on the last leg of our journey together. So thank you for being here. Thanks to the audience for listening and asking your questions. We did get a few questions from the audience for our panelists. I wanted to maybe bring up the first set of questions and leave it to you all to see if you want to answer one or the other or both, right? You're free to choose if you want to add something to the conversation there. But our first question was about advice to students. So what advice would you give to a student finishing undergrad and hoping to enter the national security field? I'll say it in Spanish as well. ¿Qué consejo le darías a un estudiante terminando la licenciatura y esperando entrar en una carrera como la de ustedes, ¿verdad? Entonces, la primera pregunta, the second question is, I concur with the comments from all speakers about supporting and mentoring other Hispanics. Estoy de acuerdo con los comentarios de los panelistas sobre el apoyo y mentoría que hacen para otros hispanos latinos, ¿verdad? Quisiera saber sus opiniones sobre cómo optimizar el apoyo de campeones que no necesariamente sean hispanos. So how would you, I guess, optimize the support of the champions that are not necessarily Latinos, right? Like that, again, going back to the conversation, that don't look like us. How would you get them on board if they're not already on board? Not necessarily because, I guess, they don't want to, but maybe because they haven't explored or seen is, even though would it be their responsibility and duty? That's another question, right? But I'll leave it to you all to decide which question you would like to answer. And we can go from there.
So I can go ahead and answer that first question about what advice would be given to students finishing undergrad. So one crucial piece of advice would be to not be ashamed to seek support. I think it's always very important. We are so happy and willing to help. And I know other people in the field of national security also feel the same way. If I had someone reach out to me because they saw my profile on LinkedIn, or maybe they were looking at my organization's webpage, or maybe they were a family friend who wanted to know how they can get into the field, that to me shows interest and shows that they're willing to do whatever it takes to get them their foot in the door and push through whatever obstacle they may have in their way. So if you're finishing up undergrad, don't be ashamed to seek support, but also apply everywhere. I think you never know what doors will open for you. So the best thing to do is to apply to everything and anything that you might be interested in. Yes, it's perfect to have a focus, but the opportunities are endless for you. So why not? And you're young enough that whether you're applying to graduate school or you're starting a career, there is time to make a career shift. There is time to make a change. It's never too late. So don't get down on yourself for that.
Building on Liliana's point on the first question about about undergrads looking to join the national security space. So absolutely everything Liliana said. I will say one of the setbacks that I have seen be a continual issue, not only in the national security space, but just undergrads trying to like break into a career in general, is experience, right? Everyone wants someone with experience. And so it's kind of a double-edged sword, because how can you have experience if you just finished undergrad, right? Well, I'll talk through like 2 or 3 things that worked for me. How do you get that experience? It's a vicious cycle where you're like, well, if I don't get a job, how am I supposed to build on experience? Getting more involved with great organizations like WCAPS, right? Where maybe it's volunteering and maybe you're not getting paid for it, but that's experience. Another example, and that helps build experience and it helps build your network. Another example would be, goodness, I just slipped my mind, applying for fellowships and internships. In the past, unfortunately, and I'm actually envious of those who are in a space where at a time to apply for fellowships and internships in the time that has changed. Before, fellowships and internships were completely free. And so then it becomes this vicious cycle. If I don't have a job, how am I supposed to pay rent while I'm looking for fellowships and internships? That's starting to change. So organizations like the Congressional Hispanic Caucus Institute, CHCI, they offer internships that are paid, right? So start, exploring internship opportunities where, as you're applying for jobs, maybe you get this internship to help build on that experience. And then the third thing that worked for me on a graduate level, but that I think is equally important, is you all have worked so hard at in the undergraduate space or student, right? We all work hard. But you spent the last 4 years, or, if it's an associate degree, 2 years, X amount of time investing in writing so many papers, right? Why not find ways to make those papers publications, right? And so just throwing pitches out to organizations, there are plenty of spaces, especially online blogs or forums. Obviously, I would encourage you to research to make sure that they're reputable, but they're always looking to pick up on stuff. So why not put in the effort to take one of your big projects, let's say the project you're most proud of, or one where, is in line with the career that you want to kind of move towards, and try to work with professors and mentors to see, where can I work on this, and where can I possibly get this published. And making you public, getting to the point where you're published is going to help set you apart and will give you that experience as well. And then as far as the second question, how to reach out to folks that maybe aren't Latinos, very simple, in the sense that it's hard and it's maybe a little bit uncomfortable, and it goes back into culturally as Latinos, like having a hesitancy to ask for help, or having a hesitancy to like, how am I going to reach out to someone I don't even know? I started off by writing like a template email that was like explained, not long, but something that explained a little bit about myself, something a little bit of why I was reaching out to the person and what I was hoping to get from it, and send it out. And I will, in one particular instance, I think I sent the same email, slightly worded, to like 30 people, and only 5 people responded. But those are now 5 people that I've built a connection with. And from those 5, I got 2 very solid mentors that were professors at Georgetown. And once you break past that, little awkward introduction phase, it's really easy. It's like, hey, do you want to meet up for coffee? Or I just came back from Panama and I bought you some Panamanian coffee. I'd love to drop it off, right? Little things like that, where it doesn't have to be about official mentorship every single time, but little things like, hi, how are you? Or a Merry Christmas email, or a little Christmas card. And that's how you slowly build towards networking and those kind of relationships. I'll stop talking now.
Thank you so much. That was so insightful. You've given us such great tips, and we actually listed some on the chat if anyone's interested in checking. I know there's several organizations that are starting to do paid internships or entry level volunteer jobs. And so please take advantage of those if you see them. And obviously here you have your own resource, right? These, wonderful ladies have so much experience and advice, that this is a resource as well. And I'm sorry, I'm enlisting each and one of you as our resource for anyone here that's, you know, trying to enter this field that is, you know, is a challenging one to enter, as many are for Latinas. But I wanted to see if anyone else had answers to that. Otherwise, I do want to throw out one more that it's very specific to Lourdes. And if you're open to answering the question, what are the challenges that you are having in Peru, especially in the army, in which women are the minority? ¿Cuáles son los desafíos que tienes en el Perú, especialmente en la Armada, donde están, las mujeres son la minoridad de los que están ahí? Entonces, you're open to answer any of them that we've already posed for the rest of the panelists, or Lourdes, if you want to answer that one, you can. Thank you.
Okay, gracias. Permítame responderle. Nosotras en el Perú somos, como les había comentado, el 11%. Vemos ya 25 años que se permite a través de una ley que dio el Congreso que la mujer pueda ingresar a las escuelas de formación, lo cual permite el acceso a todas las mujeres. Y antes no se veía ninguna mujer vistiendo el uniforme, más que la de servicio militar, que era el soldado, ¿no? Era el servicio no cuartelado femenino. Pero de ahí en adelante ha habido muchos cambios. Cambios en la infraestructura para los alojamientos, cambios en las normas, porque ya tenemos normatividad, por ejemplo, para el embarazo, cuando nosotros tenemos que seguir el periodo de pre y postparto, normas de hostigamiento, normas para la lucha contra violencia, pero ¿cuál ha sido el máximo reto? Cambiar la forma de pensar, porque somos latinos, ¿no? Y como latinos, somos más drásticos y que entramos nosotras a un mundo que ha sido masculino totalmente y ha sido un poco difícil. Pero ¿cómo lo estamos logrando? ¿Y cómo se logra esto? Se logra con esfuerzo, con trabajo, con ética, con liderazgo, con disciplina. Sobre todo cuando hacemos que ellos o todos los de nuestro equipo de trabajo, porque le llamamos así ahora, nuestro equipo de trabajo, pueda ver que podemos cumplir las mismas responsabilidades que ellos, ¿no? Así como unas pueden ser copilotos, pilotos, o pueden estar en un buque naval, o pueden conducir, como en el caso del ejército, una batallón militar. Las chicas están de comandantes de batallón, de jefes de puestos importantes, y estamos avanzando. Entonces lo importante es que esos esquemas que antes teníamos vayan modificándose progresivamente, pero no tan radicales. O sea, no hemos venido a tener un corte aquí que queremos. No, nos ganamos un sitio. Tenemos las capacidades que ellos también tienen y vamos avanzando. El ejército y la Fuerza Armada nos da la oportunidad. Entonces tenemos que avanzar. Y gracias a Dios todo va muy bien y para mí es muy grato compartir porque este espacio nos permite que nos conozcan un poco más a todas las mujeres peruanas porque llevo el mensaje de todas ellas y sobre todo las que vestimos uniforme, decirles que nosotras seguimos avanzando y creo que vamos a hacerlo mucho más.
Gracias, Lourdes. Eso es bonito escuchar y como siempre nosotros estamos aquí apoyando los esfuerzos de todas las latinas de todo el mundo, ¿verdad? Donde quiera que estén, si están aquí, si están basadas en otros países de Latinoamérica, en, no sé, en Asia, Europa, siempre estamos siguiendo esos esfuerzos porque como dijimos al principio, este trabajo se tiene que hacer en conjunto, ¿verdad? No somos, oh, tú eres latina, pero de este origen, o latina, pero de este color, o latina de este estilo, ¿verdad? No, es todo una latinidad. Entonces tenemos que apoyarnos así. Entonces, muchísimas gracias por esas palabras y les deseo muchísimo éxito en todos esos esfuerzos porque sé lo difícil que es, ¿verdad? Todos, creo que todas nosotras lo estamos tratando de hacer en nuestras organizaciones, ¿verdad? Aunque no sea ejército, ¿verdad? Siempre lo estamos tratando de hacer en nuestras áreas, ¿verdad? Entonces, gracias por eso. Una última pregunta y luego pueden contestar cualquiera de las preguntas que hice, porque sé que ya estamos como a 12 minutos para terminar. Our last question, and then you can answer any of them that you wish. This is an interesting one. Have you had any eureka moments through the course of your career where you've said to yourself, my culture makes this space better? ¿Ha tenido momentos así emocionantes en que se dijeron, mi cultura hace este espacio mejor, está haciendo este espacio mejor en donde estoy? Any of the panelists can answer any of the 3 questions that I've thrown out there already.
Sure. Well, I feel like I've spoken a lot, so I'm going to give the space. I'll put a pause, but I did have an answer for that in the event no one wanted to answer. Okay. My eureka moment, and we kind of talked about this when we first met kind of offline just to meet each other, has been that in the national security space and then in the defense space at large, it can be a very rigid, and especially in the military, very rigid and cold space to work in, right? And I think one of the things that I tried to shut down about being Latina, but I have since embraced, and I actually think it makes me a better leader, a better officer, a better person, and more effective at my job, is being more empathetic, being more caring about family, about sentiments. You know, a lot of folks in the national security defense space, they walk in, they sit down, they do the job, they get up and they leave. And, you know, taking a few moments out of the day, at first I tried to emulate that. I was like, well, this is how you do it. And this is, you know, if I want to be X rank and that is how they perform, then that is how I have to act in order to get there. But what I found is the opposite, is to embrace my culture, where we do care about family, where we do care about feelings, where we are more conversational, where we are more warm, where we're in a space where, you know, we like to hug a little bit more, or you know, just be more personable. And that, I feel like that has made me more effective as a leader, because it's so much, it's a lot harder to come by. And so in multiple times in different roles, I've been like, you know, me being a little bit more personable and asking about family and asking about kids and asking about the holidays or the weekend has made me more approachable and has made me a better leader.
Thank you, Tahina. That was awesome. And I am just listening to you and being like, wow, that has been my experience in some of these spaces as well. And I think we all learn and grow from these, and I'm glad that now you feel comfortable in being able to express yourself and express your roots and your culture, as do I in my work area as well. But I do admit that it took years. When I was starting, it wasn't easy. I tried to just fit in, right? Because I was like, if I don't, I'm not going to make it. That was my mentality. So as I grew older and I knew that I was at a certain level that I could be like, no, this is who I am. This is what I value, what I appreciate, what I, you know, how I respect myself and others, then that changed itself. And I think also listening from you all, right? Because if you don't hear it and you're not like, oh, well, hey, this is possible. I think it's a lot harder to envision you being your true self and authentic to yourself. So thank you for sharing that. Anyone else that wants to share anything or any final comments or thoughts that are not these questions, feel free, por favor, adelante.
Para sentirnos orgullosos de ser latinos, yo quiero contarles algo que yo vi, porque cuando eres latino, ¿qué pasa cuando sales hacia afuera, no? El contingente peruano que cumplió misión en Haití está conformado por hombres y mujeres. Entonces el contingente va a cumplir una misión de seguridad, misión de paz. Fue calificado como el mejor contingente porque mantuvo la paz en operaciones, cumplió bien las operaciones, pero a la par llevó asistencia a la comunidad, llevando mucha atención sobre todo a la población, acudió a ellos en el caso de desastres naturales, acudió a la comunidad llevando inclusive alegría, atención médica, y ese es como decir, mi cultura. Así somos los latinos. Los latinos somos muy bien preparados, estamos siempre a servicio de la comunidad, siempre dando. ¿Cuál fue la respuesta de Haití? Perú, ¿no? Entonces, lo mismo hubieran hecho con otros países latinos, pero es porque el latino lleva eso, y no solamente la parte militar, sino la parte asistencial, e inclusive construyeron allá porque fue un batallón de ingeniería y llevaron desarrollo, porque construyeron vías, helipuertos. Entonces, ese es el latino. El latino es sentimiento, fortaleza, y bueno, llevamos siempre ese valor que no solamente es de brindar, sino también de demostrar. Fuerza latina y orgullosamente de ser latina.
Gracias, Lourdes. Gracias. Todo eso lo tenía en mi resumen al final. Estos valores, esto lo que damos a las comunidades como latinas, como latinos. Entonces, gracias por compartir esa historia, esa experiencia, ¿verdad? Y ese impacto que han tenido en comunidades, otras comunidades, ¿verdad? Entonces, ¿alguien más? Is there anyone else that wants to? I'll turn over to Jilla if she can, continue help guiding the conversation. But if anyone, we still have a little bit of time for any final thoughts or comments or stuff. That would be great.
I saw one of the questions asking that the Council of Foreign Relations report said that Hispanics and Latinos are the hardest to recruit, or that they're having a lot of retention issues. And if I read the question correctly, any thoughts on why might this be? Yes. I worked on that exact issue as it relates to the Department of the Air Force in my civilian capacity at the Pentagon. And I'll tell you exactly why I think it is. I think it's because in the military, we have a tendency to think checklists, and if it worked like this in this scenario, it's going to work like this in a different scenario, right? And as it relates to recruitment, we have had and have maintained the same recruitment approach or marketing strategies for as long as I've been serving, but for a very long time, right? And in the Department of Defense, in the military, it's an all volunteer force. And the Department of Defense has never encountered an issue where we're not meeting our recruitment goals. We have a tendency to not really have to put too much effort. People want to serve their country. They're proud to serve their country. But what we're not realizing is that the demographic of what it is to be an American is changing, and that the Latinos and the Hispanic population is growing exponentially. And we're the fastest growing underrepresented group in the country. And so we have to start changing our marketing strategies. We have to start changing our recruiting strategies. And one of the biggest issues where I find in that is, because we've never been in a place where we have to start thinking about this, is where folks are starting, or the US military has recruited folks at the high school level or at the college level. That is way too late, especially as we've talked about in the Hispanic and Latino community, where people don't even know what it is that they can join the military. They don't know the difference between enlisted and officer. They don't know that you can get scholarships to go to school. And a lot of times, because in our countries where our parents come from, being in the US, being in the military doesn't necessarily have a good connotation. It's associated with corruption and violence and everything like that. So it's seen in the Latino community as an alternative to education instead of seeing it as an opportunity for education. So we have to start changing the way we're viewing that and marketing it. Because of the military, I was able to get my bachelor's degrees, 2 master's degrees, and my doctorate at Georgetown because I joined the military. People don't know that. And we also have to start younger. we can't wait until high school when folks have already made up their mind of what they want to be. We have to start in middle school and elementary school so that folks start being able to see what they want to be. I feel like I could talk about that all day, so I'll leave it at that.
No, that was perfect. And very much well said too. You know, it's good to have this like positive influence, a role model when you're starting at a young age in middle school, you know, and then you see that there's actually lots of benefits into enlisting in the military and just working in the security sector. Because like you said, there is a negative connotation. And recently with Iraq and Afghanistan, we already have this visual and this picture, but that's not true. There's a lot more to it. There's another side. So it's good that we do have to start earlier and changing the narrative of this. And also with retention, it's also important to not just enlist in the individual, but also the family as well too. As Latinos, our families, like we are very tight. So you also have to speak to the parents as well. You have to say like, oh, listen, mom and dad, like your child, they're great. And this is all the benefits, that this is how great their future can be. You know, these are the outcomes. These are pros and cons, of course, you know, but letting the family know that their child has this option and how impactful their future can be, it's extremely important. I'm sure like if someone had that conversation with my mom, she would have been more supportive. But to think of me telling my mom like, oh, I want to enlist in the army, she'd be like, ¿qué? ¿Estás loca? But having that narrative as well, where we're educating the youth, but the family as well, it's extremely important, yes. I don't know if anyone else wants to jump in and add to that. Well, I don't see any other questions in the chat. So, and we are at time today. So just to wrap up, we completed our panel discussion. And I just want to take this opportunity to thank our panelists for joining us today and sharing their stories of resiliency, their courage, and also just being vulnerable and sharing their personal stories with us. And just some thoughts for today are, you know, just to be patient, but to also persevere, because change takes time. You know, nothing happens overnight. There's going to be gradual changes bit by bit, but every small step counts. And it doesn't mean that things are not going to be possible, because it absolutely is. But we just have to be patient and enjoy the present day while also thinking like, okay, I am happy with where I am now, but it doesn't mean I have to be stagnant. I can be able to accomplish more, you know, and I will eventually get there, of course. So the small steps we take today have an impact on our careers. And it also sends a message to others that they too can reach a higher level. And together we can make a big difference without competing with each other. Because within the Latino community, there's no competition, but just this brotherhood, sisterhood, you know. And if we want to look up to each other, we absolutely can. But we can also look up to others as well that may not look like us. My screen just went blank. Okay, found you guys. And Sandy, would you like to say any other closing remarks?
I think you wrapped it up so nicely, Gila, that I'm not really going to add to that because you just did such a wonderful job. And I just wanted to thank you, Gila, for being our wonderful moderator. And I want to thank the panelists, Ileana, Tahina, Lourdes, Fabiana, for being such great panelists and engaging with us, with the audience. We just are so excited to have had you here, and we look forward to continue, reaching out to you for, to be each other's resources, right? So And thank you to the audience for listening. This has all been recorded. So, as we get requests, specific requests to share, we will be able to do that, right? And if you're interested as well, panelists, please let us know and we can make that recording available to you as well. So thank you once again. I hope everyone has an excellent day, and we will stay in contact. Thank you everyone for joining us. Okay.
Thank you guys.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Adios.
you.